following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to the Loft. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kathy Bailey-Smith, one of your hosts, along with the beautiful and talented Amber Logue and Andrea Sebastian. We have a fabulous show scheduled for tonight. We are talking to a very inspirational New Hampshire native, Randy Pierce, and he's going to share his story, vision, and you're going to walk away a better person for having seen this. Randy Pierce is joining us with Autumn. Randy, you have a very inspirational story, and when I read your story and saw your story, I actually had goosebumps, and it was very, very moving. So I was hoping you could share with us how you got to where you are today.
It's been a long journey, and thank you for the kind words. You know, obviously you don't ever go out and say, I'm going to go be inspirational. That's not how the world happens. What happened for me is that I had a very vibrant life that went through a pretty strong transition. At the age of 22, effectively, became legally blind, lost all of the sight in my right eye and about half in my left eye in 2 weeks. And wow. That continued on to total blindness. And you know, there's been more to the journey, but in that transition trauma, you feel like I can't do anything fun or anything important. And somewhere along the way, if you're lucky, and I certainly was, you start getting shown or figuring out that there's a different path, that you actually can do anything that's important enough to you if you're willing to do a couple of things, which is to believe, probably the first step, to problem solve and persevere. And boy, I've taken that to some pretty marvelous heights.
You sure have, literally. What I was astounded by is, you know, not only are you a motivational speaker and an inspiration to so many people, you are a published author, you're a marathon runner, you are a mountain climber, and you're totally blind, as you put it in the talk. And that was interesting to me because I hadn't thought about blindness in like relativity, I guess is the way I would explain it. Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely.
So I really was interested in how you described that.
You know, I think that learning to put a focus on two things. First, ability awareness. I have a disability. I can't see. We all have disabilities, things that we can't do. But celebrate ability awareness. What you can do is always going to be very important in your life. And the second part is sort of I alluded to earlier, which is that if there's something you can't do and it's important to you, then find a way to get there.
Yeah. There was, I was watching some of your TED Talks and radio shows, and there was one quote, and this is exactly what you just said, and I wrote it down, and I printed it out, and I put it over my computer, and it said, I love the challenge of can't. Like basically, I love trying to find out how to do what I can't do. And it hit me. It was really, really impactful because we do spend so much time talking about what we can and can't do. Oh, we can't do that. Well, why not? And how not?
You know, Henry Ford has a quote I use a lot in our school programs, but just in general, it applied to me. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about your foundation and the purpose of it. What is the mission of your foundation?
So we have three main missions, right? It's 2020 Vision Quest, and the name was sort of a play on words. I started it in 2010, and I wanted to take 10 leisurely years to climb all 48 4,000-foot peaks as our awareness gathering for the project. But we are a charity, so one of the goals is certainly to raise money, and we're an all-volunteer organization. So what do we do with that money if that's the goal? And we take half of it and give it to Guiding Eyes for the Blind, who bring guide dogs like Autumn and Quinn into my world. And I take the other half and give it to the New Hampshire Association for the Blind and Conquered. They're the organization that trains anyone with any level of vision loss to how to live independently and better with the vision they have. And if I didn't have them helping me, I might not have gotten those skills. So I want to make sure those two skills are there. But that's not really our mission. That's a part of our mission. That's the financial aspect. Our real mission is we say we want to entice everyone, all people, students especially, to reach for their peak potential, personally, professionally, philanthropically, by learning the examples that we try to lead by, which is to learn to believe in yourself, to learn to build teams, to problem solve, and to persevere. And I have spoken to 48,000 students throughout New England in the last 5 years, which is just tremendously rewarding. And that doesn't count all of the programs outside of schools, right? That's really where our mission is. And I guess the last part of our mission is maybe to challenge the world beyond the school programs in that notion too, because I do this at a lot of presentations. Anybody who's never had a problem, please raise your hand. And then I joke that I've never seen a hand.
Right.
But everybody has a problem, and for all of us, it's really, there's two messages I hear, one a lot, and I give the other more, which is that you get to choose how you respond to anything. And that's pretty important. A lot of people will tell you that. But what I think is even more important is what I learned, which is that the choice you make and how you respond to any challenge will have a bigger impact on your life than that challenge ever could. That's why my life isn't about my blindness. It's about all the choices and where they've brought me, sort of regardless of my blindness. Right? Lack of challenge leads to stagnation. More positive challenges, positive adversity, goals, whatever you want to call them, leads to you growing and becoming the kind of person you want to hear. And the number of times I get an email or a phone call of somebody who said, here's what I just chose to do because of your story. And I said, no, you chose to do that because you found a way to believe. And if I was a part of that path, fantastic. But give yourself the credit because you reached in, found something that mattered to you, and went out and found the way to do it.
Now, going back, because I listened to your talk, I read your story, it must have been, as I think you said earlier, a transformative period or a transitional period between when you knew you were losing your sight and then to kind of developing this place or peace within you with the situation. How does one do that?
Well, not always smoothly. And people always see me and say, you're so positive and uplifted.
Right.
I've had my down moments in the past, and I still have a couple of days that I get up and I say, come on, blind again today. When do I get a break? But the reality is it's not about the moment of struggling, because we're all going to hit those, even on that journey of positivity. It's how long do you want to stay there before you choose to take a direction and move in the direction you want to go. For me, sometimes there's a morning, and I bet we've all had them, where I don't even want to get out of bed. I'm miserable and frustrated. I don't know how it's going to go forward in a better light. And I'm like, okay, that cup of coffee is the first goal. And as small a goal as that is, it gets you started. And that's what I think you have to do. When I first went to the hospital with this unexpected eye condition, and 2 weeks later I'm legally blind, I thought you go to hospital to get better. And it was hard for me to accept that that's not what was going to be my story. It wasn't going to be something they could fix. The question is, could we stop it? Could we slow it? Whatever. And then there was still a delay period where I sort of mishandled it, which who can blame a 22-year-old? I'm 49 now, and I still struggle when sometimes things change in ways I don't expect.
I was actually thinking about that when you said 22. You think of a 22-year-old now and what they're looking forward to in that, and you're hit with that. That's huge. Who was an inspiration to you when you were going through that?
You look for inspiration in a lot of places, and sometimes you don't realize it. I was sharing a story just earlier today that there was a nurse in the hospital. I was at UMass Medical Center in a neurological ward, and she took me aside and said very wisely, she said, you came in here full of energy and enthusiasm and just kind of fun to be around, and you've not been mean to anybody. You're polite, but you're withdrawn, and we're not being drawn towards you, and we all know who you were, so we're working to find that person. But the people you're going to meet in your life are going to be influenced by the person they meet now. And you better think about who it is that you want to be in every now. And I candidly was probably mad at her.
Right.
How dare you tell me this? I didn't say that, but I bet I thought it at the time. It's hard to remember back that far back.
Right.
But I know that as time went on, that sunk in, and I realized there's no reason blindness has to defeat me and change who I am. We always have the chance at every moment to say, who do I want to be, and how do I start working towards becoming that person? And that's a work in progress all the time,
right.
But certainly in the big step of some particular trauma, whether it's vision loss, whether it's the loss of a loved one, a pet, any of those, any challenge, is you want to start finding that path forward, whatever it takes. And so that nurse was one, my family, my friends, the amount of things people have done to help and encourage me. I love having the chance to give it back.
Well, you brought your dog here today.
Who's
just chosen to say, you know what, I'm lying down now. I've never really heard or learned how the process works on how you get paired with the dog that's going to help you. How does that work?
So it's pretty consistent throughout the country. There's many schools that provide these dogs to us, and they're all marvelous schools. I'm particularly fond of Guiding Eyes, where I get my pups from. But there's a steady training for the dog from birth on. Really, 8 to 12 weeks, they start looking, okay, it's got the right skills we need of curiosity and good behavior. Even at that, they're looking for signs. They put them to puppy raisers who spend from that 8 to 12 weeks until about 16 months getting them comfortable in all sorts of environments, teaching them all the obedience commands that are basic, the sits, the stays. And then they give them up and they go back to a guide school where they spend 6 to 8 months of training with a professional dog trainer on the guide commands. These are all the ones that are going to involve the safety. How do they lead me on a street? How do they show me all of the obstacles or avoid them so that we can flow seamlessly through life? And that's not even the end, because then I train for some amount of time with the dog once they're fully ready to teach us how to be a good team and to give us the tools, because our teamwork and our training never ends. We have the tools so that every day is a learning moment if we take the right approach, because we're going to hit situations we didn't quite expect. Like when the tree falls down across your street at home. You can't set that up.
Right, right.
Or the power lines.
But so what, you like walk into a room and whatever dog comes to you is your dog?
So,
or
that's a really good question.
How does that work?
They do sort of a psych profile of you. They've built one up of the dog of what its interests are, what its walking pace is. That's a pretty consistent one, because they want you at a comfortable...
things you don't think about.
Sure,
Okay.
And they actually ask my friends or anyone's friends who's doing it to write an essay about you, because they want to really understand you from different people's perspectives. In my instances, I used to go down to every home football game, and they wanted to see how does the dog handle a crowd? Or I go out and spend a lot of time hiking mountains. How does the dog like the woods? Do I live on a busy street? Can it handle a high traffic with comfort? Or is it, a dog that prefers a lower pace lifestyle and maybe it belongs in a more rural area? They take all these factors in. How likely am I to be affectionate with my dog versus just, comforting to my dog? You get all range, and I'm a dog lover, right? So I have a super affectionate pup, and there's a reason for that. But they take all those things into account because they want you to be successful, and the best way for you as a team to be successful, much like our partnerships, is to be happy together, to really work well together.
I want to hear more, Randy, about how you set that goal to hike 48 mountains in New Hampshire. I want to hear more about that.
Sure.
That was like kind of, wow, because at first I think you said 10 years and then you ended up doing it in 37 months. Is that right?
I did it twice in 37 months.
Twice? Okay, boy.
So I got a little ahead of myself. The challenge for me didn't stop with my eyes. I have a neurological disorder. So it attacked my cerebellum, which is your balance center. And I spent 1 year, 8 months, and 21 days in a wheelchair as well. And I know it to that time because I didn't like it very much, as you can guess. And my goal there was, is there a way out of this chair? And if so, how? And that really is what led to the mountain climbing, because when you can't walk, you realize what a precious gift it is. And I celebrate walking. So I came out of the chair with a lot of work and a lot of determination. And part of that process was getting matched up with the guide Quinn. The harness gave me a little stability. They had given me a stick to walk with as a kind of a third leg. Originally, along with all the surgeries and things I went through, they gave me Loft strain crutches, which are like, they grab your forearm and you have a handle. So it was like 4 legs, more balance, right? When they got me to a single stick, they got me a hiking stick. They being the occupational therapist who thought outside the box. How do I find something sturdy that can handle this tall guy who's athletic and wants to move, but needs that balance help? And when I got good enough with that hiking stick and with my guide dog that I didn't need it anymore, I said, well, maybe I can just take this hiking stick to different places. Wow. And my dog so loved the woods that we began hiking in the woods. And mountains are synonymous with challenge, like a goal, right? Get to the summit. It's really get to the summit and get back, actually, right? We have to remember the summit's only halfway.
There's not always a car at the top.
But that was the drive. I like delivering the message that, you know what, I believe that we set goals is so fundamental. And mountains were not only fun, but they gave that analogy that I want to give in life.
Right. Wow.
And there's Mount Kilimanjaro.
That's
what I want to hear about. New Hampshire mountains are nothing compared to that.
So not true.
I'm not a hiker, so.
Our White Mountains are respectable, beautiful. What a treasure we have because they're a drive away, a short drive away. And you can be on trails that are as tough as any trail that I encountered in Kilimanjaro. Wow. The difference is Kilimanjaro is massive, right? You took the footprint of the mountain and it would fill our state. It would fill the White Mountains. Wow. Now, the one exception is you get to a point where there's just not enough oxygen. And that's a different world when you're hiking in thin air where you need every step takes a full breath. And as somebody who uses guides, and for that mountain I used human guides, not Autumn, for a lot of reasons that involve risk management, right? I'm not a risk taker, I'm a problem solver, and I didn't want to put her at unreasonable risk, and we thought that was the situation there. But my guides can't talk because they're struggling to breathe. So we had to change on the fly. That final day was the hard day. But what a reward because you hike all night for these mountains. That's the plan. You start hiking at midnight, so you reach the summit for sunrise. And what does a blind guy think about a sunrise? Well, I think as strongly and powerfully as the emotional response of all the people with me. And I have an understanding of it, but I hear the emotions in their voices as they describe things. And it's 19,341 feet. You're so high, you see the curvature of the earth. And you've got glaciers standing on either side of you that as the sun comes up, you've got the full range from, black sky to the blue twilight, fading down into purples, down into oranges, and then boom, the sun bursts on that horizon, impossibly distant, and just reflects off these glaciers, and you look like you're on Mars. And people with you are not only exhausted, they're emotionally overwhelmed by the scene and the message. And for me, there was one other really powerful part. I just put it in the recent chapter of my book that I released, but I brought Quinn's ashes up with me because, not all of them, but I thought that he got me to hiking mountains, and I wanted a little bit of a tribute to him up there as well. Right? So he is on a pillar of the earth.
Wow. Yeah. You know what was really interesting to me? That you made a distinction between vision and sight. Yeah. That was really another powerful thing that you said that really struck me.
It's kind of a foundation of my corporate talks. When I'm giving a keynote, one of the things I want to do, you want people to take away some things. Motivation is all well and good, but a typical person walks away from a motivational speech, feels great all that day, maybe the next day, but within a week, it's history. They need some tools to come out of with it. But one tool is how you look at the world. And I do a couple of powerful visual versus sight examples, but really the message is this. I can see a world, you heard the descriptions, through other people's eyes, through other means than my eyes. Our brain is how it gets done. You can call it imagination, you can call it neurology, but our eyes are only one way for that to get there. So I, using vision instead of sight, can see all the world around me and all the potential it can become, which is so much more powerful. Sight is just what's around you. And you don't have to have sight to have vision, but more powerfully to my sighted world, friends, is that you don't get vision just because you have sight. You get vision because you use your sight to make choices for you and your world to go to the places you want. Choose the right response, is what I think.
Wow. That really struck me. Like, seriously, that really struck my heart.
Helen Keller, probably one of the most famous blind women of all time. She's an amazing woman and has more quotes that I cherish, but one of the things she said is, the most beautiful things in the world, you don't see with your eyes, you see with your heart. Yeah. How true, right? Really.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
There's a lot I've thrown at you.
Amber's got tears in her eyes.
Yeah, me tearing up over here. I was like, stay. I'm like, it's not working.
We're all a little speechless. Seriously, it's very, when you think of that distinction, and I don't have, we all have challenges. I have different challenges. But I'm guessing that a fair amount of people that might be watching the show and our host here, for me, sometimes it's setting a goal. I might not even know what my goal is. So what do you recommend for people who might be a little confused? Do you have any sort of, tips or tools for those of us who are a little confused?
Sure. So I'll share some opinions. I don't give advice because I don't know enough about anyone's world to really be able to be an expert enough to give advice. But I'll share some opinions about what's worked for me because I've been in those positions to some extent. Get into the experiences of the world. The more you invest in experiences, whatever they may be, the more you're likely to find what resonates for you. And sometimes you stumble on those, and sometimes your heart calls and pulls you to those. I didn't realize how much I was going to love hiking initially, or how much I was going to like running. I thought running would be a chore.
Right.
And I find just the opposite because of the way that I have to run, right? I run as a team. I'm running with someone. So instead of being a solo sport, lost in headphones and getting bored or sore, I'm out there experiencing with somebody. So how do you find these things? It's the same thing as we see, here we bring our kids up in schools and we try to expose them to all sorts of things, see what they like. Well, why should you ever stop that? If you haven't found what works for you, stop spending time where you don't need to and find a way to take that time and try something new. Is it a painting class? Are you going to learn an instrument lesson? Are you going to go talk to a group of kids who are struggling? One of the best things that lifts people who are struggling is to help someone else. Right? I really believe that. And when I do something that I feel has helped somebody, I feel great about it. And that taught me another little gift that I think is important. And it was a hard lesson for me because I'm sort of a little stubborn or independent-minded. And people would want to help. And I love that they want to help, but I want to do it myself. And there are times when it makes sense for me to accept help. And what I had to realize was that if I feel so good when I help, and maybe they do too, then if I let them help, I'm really giving them a little gift too. And finding the balance that you're not narcissistic, obviously, right? But finding the balance to say, hey, let's work together. Let's allow that. And not put in so many disclaimers that you take away the fun for them. Right? All of those things fill you with rewards. And as far as goals say, there's really 3.5 huge benefits to goals. When you set goals, and I like to call them positive adversity, practice doesn't make perfect, it makes better. So when you practice setting goals, you get better at setting goals. And the 3 big benefits are you reach them more often when you set them, right? And if it's a positive adversity, if it's something you want, you're getting more things you like, so that's good. That practice makes perfect means you're developing the skills to not only set goals, but to reach goals, which means you can reach more goals, right? And get to more things that matter to you. And the third big benefit to them is that it works on, if I call it positive adversity, it works on the other kind of adversity. Those skills that helped you deal with your goals help you deal with your challenges. And if I didn't learn some of those things along the way, when I first went legally blind, tough, learned how to go forward. When I first went totally blind, tough, had to relearn how to go forward. When I got put in the wheelchair, right? You see the pattern. But every time it got a little bit easier because I developed skills that I can say, here's what I have to do when facing this challenge. And it's the same thing I did when I was trying to get something that was positive in my world. And I said 3.5 because there's one other thing, and it's the beauty of those experiences. I call it magic on the path. When you're invested in moments and doing these things, every once in a while, and more often than I would have ever guessed, some incredible experience happens to you that doesn't happen if you're sitting at home. It happens to you because you're in that moment. In crazy little ways. Getting invited to the White House to meet the president is pretty crazy. That doesn't happen if I sit at home.
Right.
Right?
That
Getting to
happened to
teach
you?
Teddy Bruschi. Yes.
I didn't hear that.
Oh yeah.
Which president? Barack Obama?
So it was George Bush.
Okay.
It was right after the Patriots won their first Super Bowl. I got named Fan of the Year by the team.
Awesome.
The year they won their first Super Bowl. I got a free trip to the Super Bowl. Got to go to the White House to meet the team. Crazy things. Why did it happen? Because in 1996, I wanted to know if I could use a screen reader. That's how I interact with a computer, to program a website, to do HTML. And I made a Patriots page as practice because I was trying to learn, to grow. Do I have any interest in this? Is it possible? Or better yet, as we talked about, how is it possible?
Right.
And that led to me building a huge community of people who want to read my website at that point. And that led to those people nominating me to get this award. And it just happened, but that doesn't happen. And that's complex stuff. It doesn't happen if you're staying at home and saying, I don't want to be in the experience, I'm too tired. Well, reallocate your time to make sure you're putting it to things that are rewarding and matter to you.
You also talk a lot about community.
Yeah. Community is the biggest team, and team is an acronym, right? TEAM, together, everyone achieves more. And a community is a team if it chooses to work together. And that's knowing that we're going to have different goals and different drives, that's okay. How do we work together to achieve all the best goals, to determine what are the right goals for our community, and how do we get there as a group? And when you learn to do that, you spend more time working together towards all the important things than time fighting with each other, usually about minutia. Right? Usually people agree on 80%, right? Agree on 80%, but spend 80% of their time on the 20% they don't agree on.
Right.
And that's why I'm all about how do we build teams? How do we communicate better? How do we work better together? And how do we build a vision and a goal of where we want to get together?
You talk a lot about goals, and Is there like a goal you're working on right now that you wouldn't mind sharing, just to see?
So yeah, I invited my community very, very recently. So January 1st was the first release. I have a story that was published. It was written from Quinn's perspective. It was the story of his life. And it was a short story. And it was published a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And people have wanted me to write a book for some time. And the way to write a book, if you do a little research on it, is you got to make time to write a book. You can't just say, I'm going to get around to it someday. So I invited a community of my friends that we do an annual dinner fundraiser, and it was an auction item to be part of this, and then we gave a limited access. And January 1st, on a private site, I've begun releasing every one of my chapters. Every month they get the upload, and they're going to be contributors because they can make comments. Hey, I want to know more about this, or hey, this wasn't as clear to me, or I really want to know, and that leads to more. So they're all helping me write this book, and over the course of the next year, I hope to have this book out and ready for the world.
Nice.
That's exciting.
That's
a good
one of many goals. I told you I've talked to 48,000 students, and I love that. Why not 1 million?
Right.
Because my message, you listen to the testimonials from students and teachers alike, and it resonates well with students about how to believe in themselves, how to approach obstacles differently. And because it's not about my blindness, it's about them. How are they going to use the same tools that I've used to make their life better? And our children are our future.
Right.
So there's some weak spots there, but there's some shining parts. How do we get more of those shining parts, and how do we help build that? And if I believe that message is that important, how do we take it to the next level? Besides coming on the Loft with you guys.
Another goal.
I know. So when you go into a school or you go into a corporation, what is the goal of that talk? Is it to help people understand that they can set goals and achieve them? Is it and so that's part A of the question. And B, have you heard follow-up from folks that have attended any of your talks, or and how has that profoundly affected them?
So part A, it depends on who I'm talking to, right? If I'm going to go talk to a group of scouts, that's totally different than a group of seniors in high school. I just did the commencement for the UNH master's program for occupational therapy. All of those are different. Or a corporation, they may have a theme to their conference that's really what they're talking about. So it can vary. It can be about teamwork. It can be about problem solving. It can be about perseverance, because that's something we all need to. What do you do when you fail at reaching your goal? Do you give up, or do you regroup? And how do you regroup? Right. So it varies entirely. Do I have a standard outline? Absolutely. And then I weave in any of the kind of the key or essential points of emphasis that matter to the organization or the school. Each one is customized. That's really part of the process. As for part B, that's my drive and my motivation, is that I get hundreds and hundreds of letters from people that, whether it's a quick email, whether they go onto our social media world, or whether they find a way to call me to tell me little or grand changes in their life that came about because they felt a connection and a resonance to whatever I said for how they can use it in their world. And we said it earlier, right? You never feel better than when you've helped somebody.
True.
And I get hundreds of these on a regular basis. So you bet that empowers me. And the trick is, I have an all-volunteer staff, but I have a lot of people that help make this. It's rare that something happens because just one person is working.
Right.
And I take some of the highlights of those and try to share it with my volunteers, because there's a quote I love, right? Volunteers are not paid not because they're worthless, but because they're priceless. So how do you find ways to reward them? And I think the answer to that is the best community team building quote of all. And it came from somebody we lost, unfortunately. I'm going to give you her quote, because then I'll get her name out, because it just slipped me right. Maya Angelou.
Yeah.
She said, people will forget what you say and what you do long before they will forget how you made them feel.
Yep.
Learn how to make people feel appreciated, respected, trusted. And they need to earn that, but you can help guide them to that and make sure that they feel those things. Because if you do that, and I have a lot of anecdotes in my world, and I tie those anecdotes into those key points. And for me, where do I feel valued, worthwhile? In every one of those notes from somebody who attended my presentation and said, thank you.
I also think and wonder how your life would be different, do you think, had you not had this neurological condition?
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time on that. It's natural and easy to go down that path.
Right.
And the real answer is that I have no idea. What I know is that it gave me a good dose of humility, and a lot of 22-year-olds can use a dose of humility.
It's a big dose.
It was a big
Yeah,
dose.
right?
Like, that's a big dose,
And that slowly led me to a better perspective, and I started understanding that if I didn't learn how to change my approach to some things, I was going to be trapped, because I'm going to have to be the guide for a lot of people who I'm going to be the first totally blind person, or maybe even the first blind person they interact with on a regular basis. How do I make that process work? Because if I don't find those ways, they're less likely to. I'm encountering that every day of my life. They're going to encounter someone like me or me less frequently, and the better I make that work, the quicker we become able to build together teamwork and community to go forward. So a lot of valuable lessons. I say this often. Every day, I wish I could see. That's the truth, right? And it's not, oh, my life is horrible. My life is wonderful. I love my life. The powerful part of every day I wish I could see is that I would choose to be blind to have all those lessons. Because while I'm a work in progress, still growing, still learning, still stumbling, I like the journey I'm on, and I like most of how I'm approaching that. And I don't know if that would be the case if I hadn't. I hope so, but it is. So let me just celebrate what is and how I got here.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good stuff.
It's fun when I talk to a group of folks that I haven't had the chance to before, because I love what I get to do. I mean, it must show, right? That I'm energized and excited. And
it's powerful.
You're leaving us speechless. We're all just sitting here nodding at each other. We're like, okay.
We're just absorbing like sponges.
you need to wear really loud earrings if you're just going to nod.
But it's just so powerful. It really is, because I think you have an effect on people. Like me, having not really known anything prior to maybe when we talked about having you on as a guest, and then reading about you and watching some of your stuff, and it's just so moving. It's so moving, and it really does inspire me to live a better life. And I think that, there's a lot to be said for that.
You all get it already, though, because what are you doing? You've created this program, The Loft, to take a different look and encourage other people to take a different look here in Nashua, at our community and beyond. And it's a vision, right? And it's one that mattered to you, and you're working towards it. The difference for me is that I'm doing the same work. I've just got something that people imagine what it would be like to be blind. And they think, awful, horrible, because what they're imagining was my worst challenge, which was the moment of going blind. They're imagining closing their eyes, instantly totally blind. And when I told you going blind is harder than being blind, that's what they imagine. So they immediately give me credibility. They try to put themselves in my shoes. That's natural. And they're like, wow, and he does all this. Well, and sometimes it's kind of humorous. They're like, you put your shoes on by yourself? Yeah, and I get it, because and they could do it in the dark too. But the point is, they give me that credibility, so it makes the reality of what I'm saying more powerful, when the truth is you're doing that same thing, and each one of the people that's watching the show has the chance, and probably does in their life, do these things in little ways. The trick is, how do we become cognizant, mindful that that is what we're doing, celebrate that what we're doing, and do it more, and do it in ways that can grow, right?
Right. No, that's true. That's true. Now, your foundation, now you're on 3 different boards, right? Or is it?
I am, yeah. I'm a little busy these days.
I know, because I was reading about them, like, oh my gosh. So if people want to learn more about you, about what you do, the vision and mission of your organization, how do they find you?
So the first and foremost place for me is 2020 Vision Quest. It's a 501c3 charity. It's based right here out of Nashua. It's 2020visionquest.org on the website, .org. And that's really the heart and links to all of the various things that I do. But if they want to learn more, go there as a starting place. Search us out on social media, and boy, I think the best way people can do things, if what we say resonates, then help us be spread further. Invite us to be on the Loft and share our posts on Facebook and Twitter. And I'm not out there on every social media platform, but we have a lot of outreach, and discover what you can do maybe to be a part of it. Just just the same way you get people to come on your shows. You find somebody here that matters or connects or inspires you, well, they can do the same thing for me. They can come in and connect and either be a help or share our cause. Or, I certainly don't turn away donations. That's part of how we do it. And, to that end, in the 5 years that we've been giving away the funds to these 2 charities that we support, we've given away just about $200,000.
Wow.
So we're coming up on $250,000 this year is what my hope is.
Wow.
Nice. All from, somebody wanting to go out and walk in the woods with his dog.
Not just that.
But that was
it's
the
a start,
foundation.
I'm sure. It was the start, yeah.
Well, if we take a short break, Randy, can we come back and spend some time with Autumn and see a little bit of your interaction with her, and you can kind of share that with us? Would
Absolutely.
that be okay?
She'd love it too, so yes, please.
Perfect. We'll be right back.
I am Randy Pierce, and for about 20 years now, I've been totally blind, and that's going to make this Tough Mudder a little more challenging.
Hand it back, I'll go back. Second rep. Oh, okay, you're going to roll it.
The truth is, going blind was really hard. I thought everything fun and everything important in my life was no longer possible. And it's just ludicrous to me because now I, climb mountains and run marathons and do Tough Mudders. And our message here really for us is we're out living the life that we believe, right? That there aren't obstacles, there are opportunities.
Tough Mudder, 10.5 miles of just awfulness. Hey! Come away!
Keep moving forward, Randy.
I'm gonna go backwards so I can top better. I reached up, felt gently, found where the bar was, put my hand not on it so I knew my head wouldn't hit it. Gotcha.
My life isn't about my blindness, it's about the choice I made and how to respond.
Bring your hand down. There you go. That's the swing. I don't feel bad. I gave everything I could. That's my goal every time, right?
The more I invest in life and be in those moments, the more rewards I keep getting. Learning to look at the world differently is the key to really having vision, and vision is always going to be way more important than sight.
Look at this video that's gone viral of Randy Pierce participating in a Tough Mudder challenge, despite being blind. Randy jumped in a trapeze, swung out, and rang a bell only 10% of contestants managed to touch.
Every day of my life, I wish I could see, but I would choose to be blind to learn all the lessons I've learned, to come to this point in my life and have so many great people around me that I wouldn't change it. And blindness, if that's what it took for me to get here and have such a wonderful life, then I welcome it. Would you like to say hello? I think we can let that happen. Ready? Off duty.
Oh, hello, sweet pea.
Good girl.
Oh, goodness, she's beautiful.
Oh, what do you smell over there?
Hi.
Go say hi. Okay.
Hi, beautiful. Hello.
Oh, you got a kiss.
Even kisses.
And Dad gets a little attention. Well, let me show you quickly her hug, too, while we're at this. So if I pop the leash, so this is sort of how she knows she's off duty. And I know sound is less important right now, but when she's in harness, she's like on the clock. And now she's off the clock. So, Autumn, heel. And she'll tuck right into my arm. Oh, very cute. Very cute. Can I have a gentle hug? Gentle hug. Where's my hug? Gentle. Oh, how about one kiss? No, one kiss. Oh, is the floor slippery? Let's try that again. One more time. Heel. Yeah, that's my pretty girl. Now a gentle hug. Let me see that. Ready? Good girl. Are you my sweet girl? There we go.
So precious.
So cute.
She is a very
my
sweet girl.
gosh.
I
And
should
just
ask you how you can train, because
yeah.
I have a dog and we don't have good training, man. Like
Mine either.
well-trained dogs.
So they
No, it's
say
repetition.
it's really
you
the
know.
people that you have to train.
Well,
more than
I
the
need
dog.
so
You know,
much
I've
training.
been told.
and you know what? When you're in a household, so if I heard right, you have a couple of grown kids, but
Yeah.
when you're in a household with kids, they change all those rules on you because you may be consistent, but what are they doing?
That's true.
Yeah,
That's
You
a
know,
good point.
And
Good
you know,
point.
like the children will learn the words, any words you say, whether you intended them to learn those words or not. Dogs will learn any behavior, whether you intended it or not. So I'm going to give her one last hello to all of you
Okay.
because she's totally out of harness and now she'll fully appreciate it. Autumn, off duty, go say hi.
Hi, sweetie.
Good girl.
Hi. Look at you.
Oh, she is so pretty.
You are so good.
And you went from being on duty to questions and sniffing and curiosity.
Oh yeah, now I just want to know. Thank you. Yes, I need all those kisses. I'm sure.
Tail, so
Yeah.
happy.
And there's one other. So she's trained. One of the ways we teach a word is if I hold my fist out, Autumn heel. What she'll do is touch it really quickly when I say touch. Touch. Good girl. So what we've learned is Autumn is a levitator, and I know this floor is really slippery, so I don't know that it can work. But Autumn, touch. Oh, that was just a tall one. She normally will spring straight up, like keep horizontal when she does it. One more time, touch. And that is how we teach her words. So what we do is, if I wanted to learn like the chair, what I would do is Autumn heel. I'm going to say the word touch. Touch. Yes. Autumn heel. And I'll repeat this 3 times. Then I'm going to say touch chair. She didn't even get over. Autumn heel. She's wait. I know you're eager. She's like, I know this game. And then I just say chair. And she touches. Now she's learned this is a chair. So I can do that with anything, and she usually gets a treat, which is why she's like, where's the payment part of it? But so there's a difference, kind of a funny one. There's a difference between a podium and a lectern, which is a lectern sits on a table, and a podium goes to the floor. Well, big deal. Why do you care about that? Because when I tell Autumn to find me a podium, and there's nothing down low, she doesn't know what to do. So I taught her the difference between a podium and a lectern. So sometimes I go in to present at schools, and she knows the difference, and you can guess that half the class hasn't learned the difference between those yet, right? So it's fun to show off her vocabulary. 100 words, Autumn.
She is just staring at you.
Is that right?
Just
Are you my girl?
staring.
Okay, down.
Wow.
And I think we're going to wrap this up, young lady. What do you say? Good girl.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.